Do you remember the very first moment you truly understood English? Not just guessing words or relying on subtitles, but that moment when everything just clicked. When you heard someone speak English and for the first time you understood it all, clearly and effortlessly. For him, that moment came unexpectedly. He was watching a short conversation between two native speakers, just his usual listening practice. But a few seconds in, he froze. Somehow, without realizing it, he had understood the entire conversation. No subtitles, no rewinding, no translating in his head. Every word flowed naturally into his mind like music. The next morning, he rushed to tell his teacher, eyes shining like a kid who had just learned to ride a bike without falling. She smiled and said gently, "See, that's the result of listening every single day. No excuses. No giving up." That sentence etched itself into his heart. It wasn't just encouragement. It was a key unlocking his belief, I can do this. From that day on, he committed to 30 minutes of listening practice every evening, not out of obligation, but with excitement. He picked videos with subtitles, watched them again and again. He didn't just listen. He echoed every sentence, mimicking the rhythm, the pauses, the tone. Some nights, he repeated a single line 20 times until it felt like it became part of his voice. He realized something powerful. When you repeat the right way, when you dare to speak and dare to make mistakes, that impossible dream of understanding English like a native suddenly doesn't feel so far. And the best part, every sentence he understood, every phrase he spoke correctly, made him feel stronger, wiser, more alive. The daily listening journey, when your ears become your strongest weapon. One morning, on a crowded bus filled with engine noise, honking, and people chattering, he sat quietly, earbuds in his ears, eyes gazing through the misty window, while his mind drifted with the conversation playing from his phone. It wasn't a dry English lecture. It wasn't the usual textbook dialogue. It was a real unscripted conversation between two strangers on the street, recorded naturally and authentically. What surprised him was this. For the first time ever, he could understand almost everything. He didn't have to pause, didn't need a dictionary, didn't feel that familiar frustration of missing the main idea. Every sentence, every emotion expressed through tone, he caught it all. His heart started to race, and a small smile formed on his face. "I understood it," he whispered. No one around could hear, but inside, it felt like a celebration had begun. He sat still for a moment, feeling like he had just touched something that once seemed out of reach. No one could fully understand that joy unless they had once struggled with a foreign language and experienced that breakthrough moment. It wasn't just about understanding some English. It was about conquering himself, overcoming years of self-doubt. When he got home, he wrote the experience down in his notebook. I understood nearly the entire conversation. No pausing, no translating, just listening and understanding. I'm really making progress. That evening, during his online class, he shared the moment with his teacher. She smiled, nodding with warm, knowing eyes. That is the reward for your quiet persistence. Listening every day, it's like training a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it gets. Whenever you feel tired, remember how you felt today, the moment you realized you understood. Those words echoed in his head like a bell. A muscle? Listening. Like a muscle? At first he doubted it, but the more he thought, the more it made sense. No one is born with a perfect toned body. No one picks up a dumbbell for the first time and lifts 100 kilograms. And no one just listens to a few clips of English and suddenly understands native speakers fluently. You have to train. You have to fail. You have to be sore. And then you get stronger. From that day forward, he made a simple but unbreakable rule for himself. My ears must train every single day. No need for long lectures. No need for heavy textbooks. Just exposure to English anytime, anywhere. In the morning, right after waking up, instead of scrolling through social media, he would play a short English podcast. While brushing his teeth, he listened. Even if he didn't understand everything, it didn't matter. What mattered was his brain and ears were tuning into the sound of the language. On the bus, instead of listening to old music playlists, he chose short English dialogues, simple YouTube videos, sometimes just a vlog of an American person talking about daily life. But those sounds, those little stories, were sharpening his ears with every listen. Before bed, instead of endlessly scrolling his phone, he'd set up autoplay English listening tracks, gentle, calming ones, as he drifted off to sleep. He didn't force himself to understand every word. He simply allowed English to become part of his natural environment. An amazing thing happened. He began to remember vocabulary, not by memorizing, but by hearing it in real contexts. When someone said, "I'm not sure about that," he didn't have to translate it. He instantly grasped the tone, the feeling, the situation where it was used. He once believed that he had to memorize vocabulary and master grammar before he could understand spoken English. But now, he realized, listening is the best way to learn both. Naturally, like how a child learns to speak. He started to share a simple tip with friends, one that he discovered through months of practice. Don't start with material that's too hard. Don't force yourself to understand immediately. Start with easy content. Repeat it over and over until you know it by heart. Let your ears soak in English, the same way a musician absorbs melodies. He emphasized, the key is to enjoy the process. Don't treat listening practice like a chore. Make it part of your life. You can listen while doing the dishes, walking, or relaxing. Let English become a companion, not a burden. From someone who once feared English, who thought he would never understand native speakers, he had transformed into someone who actively enjoyed the sounds of the language. And it all started with one small moment, a conversation on a crowded bus. After months of persistent listening practice, he began to notice something magical. The English sounds that once felt like crashing waves now became clear and understandable. He no longer had to strain his ears to catch a simple conversation. Every morning, he quietly put on his headphones and repeated each sentence from English podcasts. He could understand. He could read. And that felt amazing. But soon, a new challenge arose. Even though he understood what others were saying, when it was his turn to respond, he froze. Words tangled in his mind, and his mouth opened without a sound. It was like being a musician who knows every note but can't play a complete song. Why? One day in class, the teacher looked straight at him and said, "Speak now. Don't wait until you're perfect." That sentence woke something deep inside him. He realized that all this time, he wasn't silent because he didn't know. He was silent because he was afraid. Afraid of making mistakes. Afraid of being laughed at. Afraid of not being understood. But if he kept waiting until he was flawless, when would he ever be ready to speak? From that day on, everything changed. He stopped being silent and began to speak English out loud about everything, describing what was happening around him, talking to himself in the mirror. Every time he listened to a conversation, he paused and repeated it exactly. At first, he stuttered, but slowly words began to flow more naturally. He was no longer afraid of being wrong because he understood. Making mistakes is an essential part of growing. He wrote that sentence on a sticky note and put it on his study wall. Speak now. Don't wait until you're perfect. And from that moment, he was no longer just a learner who could listen and read. He was becoming someone who could speak English with growing confidence. Not because he was perfect, but because he was brave enough to begin. At first, speaking English in front of others felt intimidating. But everything began to change when the class did a simple activity. Practicing short questions with classmates. Questions like, "What's your favorite food?" or "Where do you live?" seemed basic. But when he actually said them out loud, he felt like he was truly using the language, not just learning it. One day after a practice session, a classmate turned to him and said, "Your pronunciation is really clear and easy to understand." That small compliment hit him like a gentle spark. He had never thought his English voice could actually stand out in a good way. That one comment gave him a surprising boost of confidence. Then came the game 20 Questions, a class-wide activity where one person thinks of an object and the others ask up to 20 questions to guess it. It was fun, fast-paced, and required everyone to speak quickly in English to stay in the game. No one even realized they were learning because they were so caught up in playing. But he knew. He was learning how to respond in real-life English situations where there's no time to prepare in advance. And the best part? He felt comfortable. No pressure. No fear of making mistakes. From that point on, speaking English no longer felt like a chore. It became a joy, a game, a natural part of his everyday learning. He began to enjoy speaking English because each time he spoke, he was taking one more step toward confidence. There was a rather unusual piece of advice from the teacher. Talk to yourself in front of the mirror. Don't think it's weird. Think of it as a chance to grow more confident every day. At first, it sounded a little strange, but the main character decided to give it a try. That night, he stood in front of the mirror, looked straight into his own eyes, and began to speak. "Hi, my name is... I live in..." Simple sentences, but saying them out loud while staring at his own reflection felt completely different. At first, he felt awkward. A bit embarrassed, like acting in a play without knowing the lines. But slowly, sentence by sentence, the words began to come out more naturally. He started talking about his day, how school went, what he had for lunch, his weekend plans. No one was listening, yet it felt like a real conversation. Every time he looked in the mirror and saw himself speaking more fluently, more clearly, with a bit more confidence, it made him proud. From feeling shy, he started looking forward to these daily mirror talks. Because it wasn't just about speaking practice, it was about building inner confidence. And something amazing began to happen. He was no longer afraid of speaking English. In fact, he started to enjoy it. That's when he realized speaking English isn't something you wait to do when you're better. It's something you start doing today, with yourself. In the past, English only existed in textbooks, classroom lessons, or evening listening practice. But it never truly became a part of everyday life, until one particular afternoon. The cafe where he worked part-time was usually quiet, with the occasional foreign customer dropping by. That day, a foreign guest walked in, smiled gently, and headed straight to the counter. He froze for a moment. His mind was filled with doubt. Should I greet him in English? What if I pronounce it wrong? What if he says something I don't understand? Then he remembered his teacher's words. English is meant to be used. If you don't start speaking, you'll always remain a learner on paper. He took a deep breath, then spoke up. Hello, what would you like to drink today? That simple sentence marked a turning point. The customer smiled and responded in English, and something amazing happened. He understood everything. No subtitles, no translation. And he replied, naturally, confidently, as if he had been doing it for years. As the customer left, he said, "Thank you, your English is really good." That small compliment echoed in his mind. Just a few words, but enough to erase all the fear. Enough for him to believe, I can really use English in real life. From that day on, everything changed. He started using short, simple phrases with customers. Would you like hot or cold? Please wait a moment. Enjoy your drink. It was no longer just theory. Now English had become his own language, a tool to connect, to serve, to show friendliness and professionalism. Every time he said a full sentence, every time he saw a customer smile, he felt like he was living a piece of the dream that once seemed so far away. Now, that dream wasn't just a fantasy. It was unfolding, word by word, phrase by phrase through everyday work. He realized one thing: English doesn't have to be perfect. As long as others can understand me and I feel confident using it every day, that's already a success. And from that very moment, he began to love English not just because it was necessary, but because it made him feel like he was growing every single day. That morning, the classroom felt quieter than usual. As I sat down, the teacher introduced a new student, a boy from Thailand, his eyes shy and his hands tightly clasped together. He walked into the room timidly, lowered his head to greet everyone, and quietly sat in the corner, almost as if trying to disappear. Looking at him, I saw a reflection of my past self. The new kid, silent, nervous, hoping no one would notice me. In that moment, something stirred inside me. I've been there. I know exactly how it feels to be the outsider, to feel like you don't belong. Without hesitation, I stood up and walked over to him. I smiled and said gently, "Hi, I'm glad you're here. I know how it feels to be new. Don't worry, you're not alone." At first, he looked confused, surprised, but then slowly a small smile appeared, genuine and relieved. Maybe it was the first time all day he felt welcomed. For the rest of the class, I sat next to him. During group activities, I asked, "Do you want to try answering this together?" When he made mistakes, I didn't correct him harshly. I simply repeated the sentence the right way, gently, so he could hear it and learn. I shared with him my own journey, how I used to freeze when speaking English, how terrified I was to say the wrong thing, how I stumbled through even the simplest sentences, and then how I slowly got better through practice, patience, and the kindness of others. Midway through the class, during a game called Find Someone Who, I noticed he was laughing more, asking classmates simple questions without being pushed. He wasn't shrinking into his seat anymore. He was showing up, one small step at a time, and I watched him with quiet pride, for both of us. For him, finally opening up, and for me, finally being someone who could help. At the end of class, the teacher came over to me with a warm smile and said, "Today you weren't just learning English. You were using it to build connection and kindness." I saw that, and it made me proud. I simply smiled back, but my heart was full, not because of the compliment, but because I finally understood what English was really about. Not just grammar or vocabulary, but the ability to connect, to comfort, to reach out and lift someone up. On my walk home, I didn't listen to my usual podcast. I just walked in silence, letting the day sink in. Over and over, I replayed the thought in my mind. Today, I helped someone overcome fear. I used English to spread warmth. And most of all, I'm proud of myself for speaking not just words, but from the heart. We've come a long way together, from improving listening skills, learning vocabulary, practicing speaking reflexes, to overcoming the fear of speaking English. And today, in this final part, I want to leave you with one simple but powerful message. A principle that determines your success in speaking English. To speak well, you must speak a lot. It might sound obvious, but this is the truth that many learners overlook. They believe they need to study tons of vocabulary and grammar before they can start speaking. But in reality, the fastest way to become fluent and confident is simply by speaking regularly and consistently. Think of learning to speak English like building muscle. If you want strong muscles, you have to train them regularly. You have to lift weights, move your body, and use strength. The more you train, the stronger and more toned you get. If you don't use your muscles, they weaken. English works the same way. Every time you open your mouth to speak, you're lifting a language weight for your brain. At first, it feels heavy and difficult. But the more you speak, the more natural and effortless it becomes. To truly improve, you need to turn speaking English into a daily habit. Every day, even just a few minutes, try to speak English. Talk about simple things. What you ate today, what you're doing, what you're thinking. Keep it easy. Just speak. If you have friends learning too, practice speaking with them. If there's no one around, talk to yourself in the mirror. Don't wait for someone to correct you before you start speaking. Remember, no one is judging you. You are the one who decides how far you go. I know many people listening to this podcast may be in their 40s, 50s, or even older. And sometimes you might wonder, can I really speak English well at my age? The answer is absolutely yes. Our brains are still capable of learning and adapting, as long as we practice the right way and stay persistent. Don't let age hold you back. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to keep speaking. That's what truly matters. I want you to remember this short but powerful affirmation and even say it out loud to yourself every day. To speak well, speak a lot. Speak with joy. Speak without fear. Each time you speak English, even just one sentence, you're gaining more control of the language. You're building your confidence. You're making English a part of your daily life. Don't wait until you're ready to speak. Don't wait until you've mastered enough vocabulary. Speaking out loud, even with mistakes, is the quickest way to improve. Look at young children. They don't wait to learn grammar rules before they start talking. They speak in broken phrases, mispronounce words, but they learn through doing. You can do the same. Give yourself permission to be imperfect and just keep practicing. Every sentence you say is progress. Every mistake is a chance to learn. Every time you speak, you're telling yourself, I can do this. My friend, if you've made it to this part, I truly congratulate you. You're someone who's serious about learning English. You're not doing it for grades or certificates. You're doing it to connect, to grow. Keep practicing every phrase. Don't wait. Don't wait. Start today. Just a few minutes each day. Even by yourself. Even silently. What matters is you're taking action. And if you found this podcast helpful, please don't forget to like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Kunzy Podcast English so you won't miss future episodes. This is where I share real, practical English learning tips, especially designed for adults, working professionals, or those who feel like it's too late to start learning again. Let's spread this positive learning spirit so we can all speak English well, joyfully, gently, and with true inspiration. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next episodes on Kunzy Podcast English. And remember, to speak well, you must speak a lot.